G'day Hexes, Havoc here. I'm bringing you a summary for the Streamer Showdown, so if you didn't catch the games, the draft itself, then you can click the link down below there. That will take you to the playlist for all the different perspectives from each player. So if you haven't checked that out, check it out first before watching this. Or if you don't have the time, you can check out the summary to see what sort of decks each player ended up with, and the final results and so on. So let's get into it. So first we're going to take a look at who was actually playing. So again, the tournament was a Swiss draft. The players that participated were Alucard, Dinotropia, Hacky, myself, Mokog, Motivation, Sithos, and Snake, and you can catch us all at our respective Twitch channels there. So those are the participants. Again, if you haven't checked out the games, you can check out all the different perspectives in that playlist link from before. So what sort of champions and decks did people bring to the table? Let's have a look. So first up, the champions. We had two players with Uzu the Bone Walker, and that was Alucard and Mokog, both trying to live some dreams. We had myself running a Raven Talon deck. We had Sithos and the Motivation running a Yodel deck, with Dinotropia with Dreaming Fox, and then Hacky with Zorzum of Koru. So that was the champions we've got there. So for all 8 players, we had 2 in Uzu and 2 in Yodel, with then 3 of us and a separate champion, different champion. So yeah, that's that, and then we'll go have a look now at each deck. So first we're going to start off with Alucard. So let's go have a look to see what he brought to the table there. So again, he was an Uzu deck. So he was trying to live some dreams, as Alucard does. Very well known for trying to live those dreams. So first glance, you can see that lots of threshold things going on here. So let's we'll go through it one by one in a second, but we'll just scroll down here to show you some more of the endgame cards here. When I first looked at Alucard's deck here, I was just like, oh my lordy! Like he was like you can see here, his thresholds quite crazy. So Alucard was trying to live a dream. So yeah, let's start off. So first up, we've got his only one drop, which is a Spiritbound Spy. It's a diamond card there. It's a 1/1. It's decent. In this sort of deck, though, I don't think it would have done a whole lot besides maybe chump block, maybe get in a few bits of chip damage. He's got an Invigorating Breeze, a nice trick there that gives a target troop +2/+2, gains a little bit of health as well. He's then got a Battle Chant, which personally, I don't think it fits well in the deck. As Battle Chant, if you're gonna run it, you want to have a lot of, you want to be able to go lots of troops quickly. Whereas this deck, really, it's troops. It starts off at the 3, and then a lot of high end, so it doesn't really get out a load of troops. So it doesn't fit too well. But he may have been, just had not much else he could run, because he was trying to live a pretty crazy dream here. So he may have had to just fit in that, or it just had maybe not enough low drops. But he also, another thing to note as well, like I didn't put the shards in, as I didn't feel it too necessary, but he was running 41 cards, which interestingly enough, several of the players did do this. They would run 24 with 17 shards, and there was, I think, at least 4 guys that did it, so I'll point that out when I get to the others as well. But he's one and only fixing here was the Hallowed Radiance, obviously the champion itself as well. Those of you not familiar with Uzu, it does gain a threshold of your choice for 4 charges. So he had the Hallowed Radiance, well, he might have actually had another fixing. Sorry, he has the Hextricator as well. So the Hallowed Radiance here, when it enters play, you gain a threshold of your choice. When you gain a threshold, gain 1 health. So the health gain is not that important, but the threshold fixing there is very important in this deck. He's got a Grim Harvester as his first troop here, so Life Drain, Swift Drag, a Blood Diamond, pretty decent for the cost. He's then got the Bone Walkers, which will benefit from all the thresholds he gains, so they're pretty decent there. He's got the first removal card here being Cripple. Well, pseudo removal doesn't actually get rid of the troop, but does negate a threat nonetheless. So yeah, so the 2 fixings that I'm seeing here are the Hallowed Radiance and a Hextricator. So it didn't quite work out. He was competing for that sort of stuff with Mokog. They both were trying to live some multicolored dreams there. So they were competing. So then the Egg Blight Stalker here, good, creating spiders, got some evasion there, so that's an evasion troop. The Skitter is a good card, good value. Without mill though, it is a little lackluster as it does rely on that RNG. But otherwise that is 8 spiders for 1 card, pretty damn nice. He's then got an Evolution in Diamond, giving a target troop flight, and then troops you control with flight get a buff as well. And then he's got a Cyclone Shaman, so that's, I think, doesn't actually run many Sapphire cards, but the ones he does run are very threshold heavy, hence the thresholds on the right here. So, but Cyclone Shaman is an incredibly good card. Very nice effect that it does there, and a 2/4 for 4 flyer is very nice. But getting back in action is pretty sweet. He's running a rare here, Grim Assimilation, so he can look at a target opposing champion's hand and then choose a revealed troop and steal it, basically. He's then got Midnight Paladin, which if you're trying to do multi-colors, especially 5 colors, Midnight Paladin is a must-have, really. You want to pick that up at any time you can. So then he's got a Canyon Runner with flight, which is pretty decent. We've got, because that'll give its effect to the next troop in the deck, so another nice prophecy there. Temptress Blade Dancer, which is a great troop, but yeah, again, the thresholds in this deck are tough, because we'll look at that in a second, but yeah, so that's a nice Speed Crush, Steadfast troop there. Vamp Python, best suited in Spider decks. Now, he does have some Spider creation, so it's not the worst, because, if you do get, even just having a few Spiders out with this, and maybe some other evasion, you can end up in a position where you're taking damage, but you're healing for most of it, or maybe all of it, on your own swing, so you end up benefiting there. This can be very nice. Best suited in a very spider-heavy deck, though, or a deck with lots of evasion, just so you can keep getting that health back while you're dishing out damage. So one thing he does have a lot of is the high cost cards here, which we'll look at the curve view in a second. So 2 Midnight Spiritualist, which is very nice when you've got, you're wanting to do all thresholds. It's very nice. He's also got here a Brood Guard, which is, more spiders, which is not bad. It is 6 cost. Actually, back to the Spiritualist here. So if you're not familiar with it, when it dies, it creates a phantom for each threshold you have, each different threshold. So if he does have all 5 colors, he would get a lot of phantoms there, 5 of them in total. Sign of Velocilov, one of a really nice sweeper potential here. Let's actually have a look at how many necrotic he has, because it does deal damage based on each necrotic you have to each opposing troop, non-necrotic. So in terms of necrotic, we've got these 2 here, and that's very likely why he's running this. It is, a decent 1-drop. Mainly in this deck would be used as a chump blocker to delay, because this deck's win condition is very much in the late game. It's not an aggressive deck at all in the slightest. So just a delay, but also if he does manage to keep that around or gets it late game, he's got 2 necrotic there. This guy is a necrotic, so we've got 3 there. Sadly, there's 5 total so far, and some of them are the more expensive. But if he was able to get out, several necrotic, even just 3 necrotic on the board, before doing this, can do a lot of work, but not a whole lot. He obviously would have liked to have more there, but yeah, pretty decent if he can get that to happen. So I'll have to go back and watch to see if he did get to live any Scion dreams there. So Vex Storm, I'm guessing he ran this just because he just wanted to try live another dream. I'm not sure, but it's a 3 threshold, 6 cost. Yeah, each champion draws a card for each card they control. Put each card in play into their controller's deck. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I guess, just a bit of fun there. But it is, again, very threshold heavy there on 3 Sapphire. And there's not really much, synergy to speak of in terms of how this works, because, you're putting all cards from in play. And because most of these cards are... Now, it could work decent with a Spiritualist. If this was to die, get a load of phantoms, then he would draw, several cards for each phantom, and then it puts all the phantoms in the deck, which isn't. I mean, yeah, it's a very situational card, but I'm guessing he just didn't really have better things to put in, really, or he just wanted to try and do something crazy. So Vex Storm there, and then he's got a Legendary in there, which is another 3 Sapphire Threshold. Now they're both high cost, so potentially he could have those thresholds online, but still very, very tricky in this deck because the lack of fixing, as Mokog probably stole a bunch of that. So Poet of Glacky, so unblockable 2/8 and has a pretty decent effect there. So if he was able to get this online, it potentially would have done some work. But yeah, another very expensive card. So that's his deck there. That's what he ended up with. So let's look at that in the curve view. So as you can see, a very lackluster early game in terms of just the 1 and 2s. Decent amount of 3s though, which is very important in most decks to have a good amount of 3s. But yeah, then I mean the 4-drops are okay. I wouldn't say this is too many 5s. But then when you get to this, the fact that he's got 3 6s and a 7, he was as I said running 17 shards, so that does allow this to potentially be alright. But yeah, it still would be pretty rough. So yeah, that is Alucard's deck. So you know, the win condition for this really is just trying to delay, you know, the early game to get to this late game. The Midnight Spiritualists would probably be his best win condition, and that's where the Vampython here, you know, if one of these was to die when he's got all 5 thresholds, then that he could race in the air while leeching back life with Vampython. So that definitely could have maybe done some work. I'll have to go check that one out myself. But yeah, so and the spiders as well. Like, he does have some decent spider creation there, so that was probably the one way he was, you know, trying to win there, or gets, you know, even the poet out could potentially do some work. But yeah, trying to just probably survive the early game, get to these big guys would be the way Alucard's deck was probably trying to win there. So decent amount of flyers, decent amount of evasion. Actually, how much removal did he have? Let's have a look. So besides the cripple, he's got a trick, which, you know, can't really include that. But so I think, well, this guy, you know, again, that's yeah, it's it's iffy, but it could have potentially done some work. But really, he's just got the cripple there, so he didn't get a whole lot there. So that yeah, so that was Alucard's deck. So how many actions? We had 4, 6 actions, 2 constants, 16 troops. So yeah, I mean, not much else I can say about it really. It's very dreamy, very dreamy, but definitely I think yeah, the Midnight Spirituals would have probably been his best chance at getting wins there, and potentially spiders, but without the mill, it makes it pretty rough. So let's go now look at, let's see, we'll just go to the next one on my list here. So we'll go down to, from Alucard to Dinotropia. So Dinotropia's deck here is a Sapphire Diamond, using the Dreaming Fox, if you're not familiar with, is a 7 cost, create an Oracle Song and put it into your hand. Oracle Song being target champion draws 2 cards for 3 costs, so if you are in a situation where you're flooded, or the game is going late, it's a really nice way to make sure you can continue to have gas and able to do things. So nice champion, very nice health total as well at 25. Uzu's actually, how much is Uzu at? I forgot to mention that one. I think it's 23. From memory, she's up here somewhere. 23. So yeah, Uzu's 23. So both really nice health totals there. So let's have a look at Dino's deck. We'll start from the beginning here. So we've got just an infusion device just to get a bit of fixing, and also potentially some ramp there. So infusion device. He's going to got 2 shield bashes, which are nice tricks as they can be empowered to do a lot more. Now the main strategy, as you can probably tell just by the first glance of a Dino's deck, is it's all about the evasion via flight. So you'll notice he has a lot of flyers, and so yeah, he's even got ways to buff flyers as well with Cloud Speakers, which are incredibly good in this style of deck, as they are very good defense at 0-4 for 2, while also then having this really nice one-shot effect to then buff up a flyer. So yeah, so this first flyer actually is the Room Web Infiltrator, which is just a 1/1 for 2. That also makes more threats with the spider, so giving him an alternate way to win if his flight strategy doesn't work. He then has, in terms of removal here, we've got the Pride's Fall, which works on troops with 4 defense or more. And then we've also got Quell, which gives target troops defensive, so not real removal. It's not going to remove something from the board, but pseudo removal, similar to Cripple. but in this sort of deck, very powerful as your troops are going over the top, and then you can just take care of ground troops that are threats. You can just use Quell on them. So it's a nice option there. So again, the Cloud Speakers to give a very nice one-shot effect to flyers. He's also got 2 Cloud Walks, which are very good in giving more troops flight, while also drawing a card, so a nice cantrip effect. So you get to use this, give something flight that you want flight on, and then replace it with something else. So very nice. So Cloudwalk is a nice card, and then he's got 2 Hatchery Malvokers, which are very nice targets for Cloudwalk. As every time you cast an action, you create 3 Spiderling eggs for your opponent and put them into their deck. So giving this flight and just hitting in for 2 while making spiders while doing so is pretty nice. He's then got an Ethereal Caller, which is another flyer, which also gets back a troop from the crypt, transforms it into a phantom, and puts it into play. So it's pretty nice. He's then now one of his really big cards here, which was very nice with things like Cloudwalk, is the Crypt Shrieker, which he could put down as early as turn 3 if he's got the double diamond. And then with the Major Diamond of Solidarity, which is a very nice effect. When it deals damage to opposing champion troops you control, get +1/+1. So yeah, very nice effect when you can give it evasion. So flight on this guy is obviously very nice, and he has many ways to give flight in the deck. Via the Windborn Disciple, which is a shift flight troop, obviously the Cloud Walks, and then also we've got Evolution here, which again, as we saw before, target troop gets flight, and then it gives buffs to all your other flyers. And then we've got another flyer over here, which is a very nice one, as he has 2 very good shift powers. So the Stone Infinitor, you can shift flight or shift swift strike, so you can turn 2 threats that maybe aren't doing enough or can't get through. You can make it so one gets through by giving it evasion, and you can make it so the other can, maybe it's got a high front end with a small defense. You can then give it Swift Strike to potentially make it so it's hard to block. And then yeah, so he's got lots of evasion there, decent removal. The tricks are good because of the Empower. And then he's also got advantage through Lanapor's Sight, so that's a very nice prophecy card here. As you use this, and then the next 3 cards in your deck will get, well, the next action, the next resource, and the next troop technically, will get when you play this draw a card. So very nice in limited especially. It's also something that's seen quite heavily in constructed decks. So more flyers here as well. We've got the Canyon Runner with flight, Runeweb Cultivators with flight, and then we've got 2 big Crypt Guards, which they are shift defensive, but we already know he's got some good targets for that, like Cloud Speakers especially. You can just, they're already there to defend. They're never going to be attacking because they're never going to get buffed on the front end. So that's something he could shift off, and then he's just got a 6/6 for 6 that he could give flight with several of the things we mentioned, or Swift Strike if he wants to. He's also got the Major Gem, the same one he has in the Crypt Shrieker, in the Kin of Olkoth. So another one that has to really be stopped if it hits in and there's several troops on the board. It's very painful, as that Major Gem, that Major Diamond Gem is very, very good. So yeah, very straightforward deck, but very powerful because it has lots of evasion. The removal, while it's not a huge amount, it really doesn't need it due to the fact that just it's just a the deck can just really put on the pressure very quickly. But yeah, like I see there is potentially decks that that some of these guys got which could have gave him a run for his money, but he was in the end the victor. He did the evasion was just too much for pretty much everyone, but you would really have to put on a lot of quick pressure to get through this. So yeah, that's down to Trivia's deck there. So yeah, winning through that flight evasion there. But also, again, the spider backup plan is also pretty good as well. If you in a stalemate situation where he can't get in through the air, the Malvokers, if the game keeps dragging out and he keeps getting actions, which actually let's count how many he's got. So we got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 actions total. So if he was to have 1 or 2 of these out and just getting several spiders here and there, that could be a backup plan if he's got in at early damage and then can't get through anymore. Getting just 1 or 2 spiders could be, they are unblockable after all. So definitely a good deck there. Sapphire Diamond is very strong if you can get this, enough flyers. So yeah, definitely many ways to give flight as well. So all about that evasion there with Dinotropia's deck. So yeah, let's go to the next deck here. Let's have a look at, which is the next one? Nope, it's Hacky. Hacky. So Hacky was the only person truly in spiders, and you can see by the sheer quality of his spider cards here that he was fairly uncontested. So first up, he's got 2 Hatchery Priests, which is a decent 1-drop. You know, that creates a spider every turn, so that's very nice. You got another 1-drop here with the Hatchery Tormentor, which is a very, very good 1-drop, as it's a 2/1 that also has this very nice effect that even if it's doesn't have to be this, but any troop that hits in that deals damage to an opponent for the turn will then make a spider, basically. So it's just 1 spider per turn, as long as a troop is hit. So you could have 2 spiders hit in, or 1, doesn't really make any difference. 1 spiderling egg will then be created. So it's good value, very good value. It's a, you know, for a 2/1 for 1 is very good. Festering Decay, which is very nice removal, and because he does have enough low drops, it's very likely he'll have this online at a decent rate, as these things will likely, you know, so something's going to die early on, most likely. So that will be online, which is a -3/-3 at this additional cost here to avoid a troop in your crypt. So the Egg Blight Afflictor, just a nice 2/1. Can't block is the downside, but when it does die, it creates 4 spiderling eggs. Entangling Web's a good way to either push in extra damage or just delay your opponent's threats from attacking, and while you buy time to get to what you need, or just maybe you need to survive a turn just so you can win on the next one, perhaps. But Entangling Web's pretty decent and good with spider decks, because you are going to have, provided you curve out correctly, you're going to get, you know, especially in Hacky's deck, you're going to have spiders. No worries, you're going to have at least 1 at some point in the game. So that's good with those, because you can use it on a spider and continue attacking with other things, or all your other spiders. So then Webguard, also very good. Definitely caused me a bit of trouble. I think it was this card, yeah. So when a spider enters play, you may exhaust target troop. This definitely gave me a lot of trouble. Yeah, just wanting to swing in but not able to, as Hacky just kept getting spiders. So very good card there. Splinter of Buckrug, another good way to get more spiders, while it does mill himself and, you know, buries his own top 3 cards and the opposing champion. Obviously, the benefit is he's getting an evasion troop that can potentially block or attack in the air, while also, you know, again trying to get to those spiders, which we've got this card over here that will benefit spiders. So every spider he gets, if this guy is in play, the spiders will get +1/+1, which is a very big deal. This is a, you know, a priority kill target. If you're against spiders, you definitely need to get rid of this guy quick if they've got, you know, even a semblance of mill, which Hacky has plentiful in the Azure Fang Decrees. So the fact that he got 3 of these is extremely good for him, as it is one of the best mill cards at the moment in terms of limited, as you create 5 spiders and then mill 5 cards from your opponent. So very, very good. So yeah, very easy to get spiders. Just by casting 1 of those, you'll get potentially a couple. Even on your first cast, even if it's turn 3, you've got a pretty good chance. Not to mention the charge power as well, which creates 3 spiderling eggs also for 3 charges. So then you've got Vampire Kiss, which is another good removal. 2 damage for 2 and 2 health for 3 cost. So far we've got these 2 as his removal. Valfang Eremite, another staple card in spiders. For every spider that enters play, it deals 1 damage to each opposing champion, and you gain health equal to the damage dealt this way. So can be very powerful, especially if you just get like this on the board and then just decree. So another great card here, very good rare, is the Tribunal Magistrate. Very, very powerful. If you get this out with just a few other Venom, or even just 1 other Venom, by itself it gives all your spiders +1 damage, which is very good, as your spiders are blockable. But it also makes it so every time your opponent plays something, a non-resource card, it creates 2 more spiderling eggs and puts them into that champion's deck. So pretty damn brutal, and it is also a 0/5 for 3, so can defend very nicely. So he's also got another really good removal here, Grim Justice, another good rare. Destroys up to 1 target troop with cost 2 or less, and you put up to 1 target troop with cost 2 or less from your crypt into play. So in terms of Hacky's deck, he could get back an Egg Blight Afflictor, a Tormentor, a Priest, Webguard, Splinters, or even spiders. So pretty nice there. Obviously a limited reach in terms of what it can kill, but generally you're going to get targets in a limited game. So then Skitter is, again, we've saw this before in, I think it was Alucard's deck. He didn't have the mill like Hacky does, so Hacky obviously will benefit from this type of card a lot more. So yeah, 8 spiders, but the potential to play it for free as well. Very good card, especially in this deck. So he's got another pseudo removal card in Time Flux, just being able to revert a card and then put it back into your controller's hand to potentially gain tempo, or just slow down your opponent, or stop a trick. Many good uses for that. You could even just be using it for the revert. You could even potentially use it on one of your own troops to save it, of course. So he's got Unblockable Shadestalker here, pretty decent 4-cost card there for 2/3 that can shift it away as well, which would be decent on, even if you were to play this out and then shift it on there. It is a rage troop, so giving it unblockable, but generally you're going to shift this off to a spider in most cases and leave this as a very nice defender as a 2/5. He's also got more mill over here with the Psionic Acolyte, 2/5 with a nice shift effect again, 2 berry cards, and then at the last but not least, the Grim Martyr. He's only 6-drop there as a 5/5 with this nice effect here, which the good thing about this is it doesn't have to exhaust or anything. You can just sacrifice it. So if you do, say you were to play it out, the next turn you block something, if it's not going to trade, you can just sacrifice after blocking and get your cards. But the fact that you can shift it does make it nice. You could shift it to a spider if you've got plentiful amounts, which based on the deck here, Hacky would have definitely made a lot of spiders throughout his games. So very nice spider deck there, and he was the only player in spiders, so that's generally one of the, we did see some players, we already saw Alucard with one of these, which I'm sure Hacky would have loved to have another one, but he did end up with the meat and potatoes of what is needed in a good spider deck. So very nice there. So next up, let's go have a look. And obviously Hacky's deck there, the main win condition is just spiders everywhere. So next up is myself. So I was using Raven Talon here, so if you're not familiar with this one, it is for 3 charges. When a troop enters play under your control, you gain 1 health this turn. So it's not generally it's not going to get you a huge amount of health, but it's more about the synergy with your cards. Even if it just gets you 1 health, generally the reason for using it is because you have things that benefit from gaining health. So yeah, so this was the deck that I drafted. So I didn't want to go Wild Diamond. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it started off with my first pick. I think was the Artisanal Cheese Smythe. So I couldn't pass that up. It's a pretty good card. It's borderline bomb. Not really, but the longer it sticks around, the more cheeses you get. So, and a 2/3 lethal is pretty damn good. So I had to take that, and yeah. So I ended up with this. So first up, we got the Young Seer. So it's just a good 1-drop, potentially reducing something, to make it so you can play multiple things in a turn. But the main way this deck was designed to win was just through a lot of life gain synergy. So first up, we've got an Invigorating Breeze, which it's a trick that gives, we saw it before, gives +2/+2, but the gain 2 health was the important thing here. Then we got 2 Silver Rooks, which can be exhausted for 2 cost to deal 1 damage to each opposing champion, and you gain health equal to the damage dealt this way. So just you could do that, gain life, and then you've got things in here that I'll talk about in a second that benefit from whenever you gain life. Another life gain here, it's a life gain Swift Strike, a nice 2 cost, 2/1. So just really nice value. Cottontail Explorer, just to make sure you're getting your shards and thresholds, well, hopefully, but also just a decent chump blocker, really. Lyrical Chanter, a nice Empower card, can make it a 4/2, and you get some random chance, which are not too important, but if you get something that you can play, definitely not bad because it's free. So decent troop, 2/1 for 2, or if you do get it later, it's a 4 cost 4/2. Next up we have the Chimera Guard Fallen, which is when it attacks it gets damage equal to this troop's defense this turn. So basically if you were to just attack with this, it would be a 4 damage, 2 defense. But ideally you want to shift this to something either with a really large back end, or something with a decent back end but with evasion. so you can get the damage in. But you know, very nice quality troop there. Ghost Feather is another good one in the fact that you can turn a troop into a Spirit Eagle. Spirit Eagle being a nice flyer with a nice effect there, with being able to exhaust a opposing troop without flight on attack. So yeah, Ghost Feather could, for example, turn an Explorer, a Young Seer, you know, anything that's lackluster into something potentially better in that Eagle. So the first troop we have here that works with all the life gain is the Mesa Totemist, which is another Empower card, so you could play it for 6 and have a 2/8, which will obviously benefit with the Chimera Guard, but already by itself it's enough of a threat without potentially putting that effect on there as well, as whenever you gain health, if you were to empower this, it would get 6 extra damage in Swift Strike, but if you play it out on 3, even that is a 4/4 Swift Strike on attack as long as you're gaining life. Next up we have the Stone Infinitor, which we've seen before. Again, just really nice being able to give 2 troops, or even just 1 troop, flight and Swift Strike. Just really good value. Whirlwind Scout, another life gain on entering play here. Gain 3 health if you've got a Coyotl in hand or in play. So the deck, as you can see, has a decent amount of Coyotl. We've got, what, 3 here. Himself, which obviously doesn't count himself with the effect, but yeah, I mean, I had more, but I ended up not running all of them, but yeah, it's still enough. But there are situations where I potentially didn't have it to get the life benefit, but yeah, so then we saw the cheese guy here, obviously making cheese is very nice value there. So another troop here that benefits from the life gain is the Chlorosaur, so once per turn, when you gain health, this gets +3/+3, so basically it's a 5/5 as long as I'm gaining life. So the Silver Rook can be used, and then bang, hitting in for 5. So not too bad. Another evasive troop here with the Deep Gauge Disciple. And when a power is shifted onto a troop, it gets buffed. So we have not many shifters, but it's mainly just there for the evasion. But it is a very good troop with this effect here, as it's got the evasion. If you put this effect here onto him, he'll turn into a 3/4, and then obviously on attack, we'll get an extra 4 damage, so very nice damage there. Neophyte Awakener is just a way to get back 3 cost or less troops from your crypt and put them into your hand. So it works very good with things like, you know, getting back your Cheese Guy, your even a Whirlwind Scout, a Stern Infinitor, your Mesa Totemist if it's not empowered, Ghost Feather, Chimera Guard Fallen. I mean, ideally you want to get back either this guy, maybe the Cheese Guy. They're probably your 3 best ones to choose from if they were to die early. Then just a Spirit Eagle, which we've already seen, so one of them actually in the deck. 3 more evasive troops there that work with life gain, so this is similar to the Chlorosaur in the fact that once per turn when you gain health it gets +2/+2, so it becomes a 4/5 in the air. So pretty good, and there's 3 of those in the deck. And then one of the bigger cards here, the Ghost Howler, that I would have liked to get more, but you know, it's a pretty big card, so people don't generally want to, you know, if they're in your colors, they're not going to obviously pass it up, but it is also something that people generally will deny if they're a bit worried about it based on what they've seen so far. So it is a very, very powerful effect in the fact that when you gain health, troops you control get +1/+1 this turn. Now it doesn't say, like if you look at the Cherish Songbird, it doesn't say once per turn, so this is an effect that can trigger multiple times. So if you were to, for example, use, say you have him on the board, you've got several other troops, you've got the Silver Rook, your opponent knows about it, so they know that you're going to get +1/+1 on all your troops, so they have to take that into account. But then if you were to play an Invigorating Breeze in response to something, then you're not only going to get that buff again on all your troops, it is obviously something that will surprise your opponent and yeah, do a lot of work. Now this is actually, I could have had 2 of these. I can't remember what I took over the second one, but the deck definitely would have liked to have 2 of them, that's for sure. Just because these aren't obviously a surprise. Your opponent knows about it, so you know, if you do have things out like these on the board, they know that you've got the ability to activate the Silver Rook, for example. Whereas having surprise life gain definitely would have worked out better for me. But then there's also another more life gain here with the healer as well. So just the one and only 5-drop in the deck is a 4/4 for 5. So lots of ways to gain life, as you can see. So the main, you know, it's not a fast deck or anything like that, but just I mean, it can be. It can get a decent curve and be fairly fast, but it's more, mid-range, just with a lot of synergy with the life gain. But as I said, the one thing that would have been nicer is to have even just more of these would have been pretty damn good, just because the surprise factor would have done a lot more basically. This also is another good thing though, as it does have the swift strike. So swift strike and life drain means that if your opponent's not paying too much attention, if this hits, this will hit first, so it will activate all your other dudes like your cheery songbirds and your chlorosaurs and your ghost howlers before they even do their damage. So yeah, the deck would have liked to have more swift strike life drainers. Would have been good. Also would activate this as well. But yeah, so that was the deck I ended up with there. So I liked it, but I'm not a huge fan of doing things like Wild Diamond. Next up, let's have a look at Sithos. He actually ended up with what I normally like to go, so we'll look at his next. So he ended up with McBombers, which I'm a huge fan of McBombers, so we'll look at his now. So he ended up with the Ruby Sapphire McBombers deck here. So if you're not familiar, it's just if you've played an action and you've got 3 charges, you can create a Bumblebot and put it into play. A Bumblebot is a very nice flight speed 1/1 for 2, so just a really good evasive troop there. That does work wonders with things like combat training, which Sithos managed to pick up 3 of, which is very nice. Seeing Red is another good one. So these are, if you're wanting to do a very aggressive McBombers deck, these are things that you're gonna want to have some of them. And picking up 3 combat trainings is pretty ridiculous. And while he got a fairly decent aggressive curve here with 1 and 2 drops, I think the only thing he was really lacking to really make this deck a bit next level, to really just push it home, is just a little bit more evasion. He does have good targets for like Seeing Red and obviously combat training, and obviously getting the free B is another evasive troop. But yeah, I think the only thing he was just missing is just a few more evasive troops, either via flight or even more Death Mask would have been really good for him. But he did end up with a very solid deck. So he starts off with a Thunderfield Seer, which is a nice 1-drop, as it will give a nice effect to your next action and give it draw a card. So that's something he could play out, and then potentially combat training, and he's got 2 Scans, so they're very nice early drops that again work very well with combat training and Seeing Red. Death Mask Assailant also working very nice with both of these, as it can't be blocked by troops with less damage than it. So if you are to buff its damage, or you buff other things' damage and then shift its effect, definitely very nice synergy there. The Emberleaf Duelist, also another one that does work very nice with these buffs, as it has Swift Strike on attack. The Basher, also another good one, as it has the good back end, just like the Scans over here. So the Basher being a 0/3, and also the amount of troops you attack with will also give it more damage as well, depending. So then you got Throwback, which is pseudo removal, giving a target troop -1 damage and putting it back into their hand is pretty nice. So yeah, the one thing he didn't get much of is actually removal. You'll notice that he really just has the Throwback, the Cleave, which also Cleave, because it's limited, it can only deal 1 damage up to 3 target champions or troops, so it can't do, 1 damage, 1 damage, 1 damage all to a single target. It has to be separate, so really it's only going to kill things in this deck with 1 health, so they're generally going to get targets for it in a limited environment, but it definitely may not be enough. So he didn't get much removal, and the evasion could have been, if he got more evasion, I'm sure it would have been, there's a few cards that, for example, like Maestro is not that great in this deck because it is a 4-cost 3/3, which is okay, but the effect is pretty much going to do nothing, as there's nothing to benefit that, there's no elves besides like these guys, which, I mean, it's okay, but yeah, again, it's a little lackluster. But I think the main things that are a little lackluster, or more lackluster, that he would have preferred to replace are things like Suffocate and Refute. Now they're not bad. I think Suffocate is probably the one I would get rid of first over Refute, because Refute you can get out these early threats and buff them up and then just protect them with a Refute. Whereas Suffocate's a little slower, double threshold, and again I would, just having more threats, more aggression would be what I would like if it was me. But he could only take so much in the draft, obviously. But he ended up with a very solid Ruby Sapphire deck here. So yeah, so where were we? Throwback. Crazed Raider is a nice Empower card with Rage. Then we've got the Flame Spitter here. Every time he plays an action, you get a Blaze Elemental, which is just really good value to get free troops that can later on deal damage to your opponent. Frenetic Doppelganger is not bad, but I think it's actually bugged at the moment where it only transforms once and then stops. But I'm not too sure. Maybe it was fixed. It's okay though for 2 cost. Even if it transforms, like obviously you wouldn't want it to transform into like a Seer or something. But if it was to transform into like a Death Mask, that would be fine. Any of this stuff really would be okay. If it was transforming into one of your own troops, that is. Obviously it could also transform into opponent's troop. It is completely random, so you have no control over that. Scraptooth Cackler, not the greatest in this deck, because there's no real way to give it evasion. Well, besides the Death Mask, there's just that. So that would be fine. But yeah, it can just be used to trade with big threats of your opponent potentially. But this is where even just having a Cloud Walk or 2 could be nice in this deck as well, because you've got Crazed Raiders, you've got the Cackler. Would potentially be okay to have just like one of those. So he's got 1 evasion troop here with the Rider. So with the Bee, the Rider, the Death Mask effect, that's it's not too bad, but yeah, that's probably the only thing he was really lacking, was just more evasion, because he's definitely got the buffs and a lot of ways to do a lot of damage quickly, but potentially they can be traded with or killed quite easily. So the Rider, then we got Preston over here, as I like to call him. A very nice 3-cost Sapphire card there, which will create a random 1-cost action that you meet the thresholds for, put it into your hand. So just very good value. Obviously the Refute and the Suffocate, which are both basically counters. You can interrupt cards. This one has obviously this requirement. This one doesn't have a requirement, and also creates 2 Spiraling Eggs. Now Redlock's Apprentice is a little lackluster, but the back end with the buffs that the deck runs is actually another, it's a good thing. If you can combat training this, if your opponent can't block it, then it can potentially hit in with a combat training, get that back and keep getting buffed. But its main effect obviously is it puts a random action from the top 4 cards of your deck into your hand, if there's an action there, of course. So the deck actually runs 8 actions in total, so not too bad. But that's probably also a thing that I would, if I could, I would cut if I was to build this sort of deck, if possible. Lacuna Crowfeather is also pretty decent. It's a 2/4 for 4 with a nice effect. Obviously, the more Coyotal, the better, which this deck only has the 1, so not likely to obviously chain. But yeah, still ended up pretty nice, and I think Sethos ended up doing very well with the deck. I think it was, we'll look at the end results later. But yeah, very nice deck. The only thing that's really missing is probably just a bit more evasion and some better removal. But yeah, so far we've seen, what have we seen? I don't even know. So there was Alucard, Hacky, and we've looked at, let's see, Dinotropia. And so far, I think in terms of removal, Hacky's had the most. But yeah, all of us having not too much so far. So and that was one of the things with my deck as well, is I didn't really have. It was just tricks, and yeah, didn't really get any. I wanted some, just didn't get any. So we've seen those guys, we've seen Sithos now. So let's go look at Mokog. So Mokog was another one trying to live another dream. So just like Alucard, Mokog was trying to do many colors. So he was doing the Uzu the Bone Walker. He did get more fixing, so he potentially was pulling that out from under Alucard before he can get a chance. But, well, when I say that, he really only did get 2 Hallowed Radiance and a Duskwing Shepherd. Let me just make sure that is all. So, yeah, pretty much just those 3 as he's fixing, and then obviously the Champion Power itself. So he did get some removal here with Totem Trap, Crimson Bolt. Playing with fire is, if he gets 5 drops after playing that, it can act as removal. Etherealized Boomsmith, and that's it. So he got some removal there. So Totem Trap being a 1 cost, deal 3 damage to target an attacking or blocking troop. And that's something I would have liked in my deck. I was hoping to see any, I didn't get to see any, so very, very good 1 cost removal there. So he's got, let's see, how many chants and constants does he have here? He's actually got a decent amount. So he's got the 2 Fury chants, the 1 Mesmeric chant, obviously the 2 Hallowed Radiance. And then, let's see, and then he had the 2, another 4 constants over here as well, and these are Verdant chants. So he's actually got, he ended up, he was obviously trying to do that. So the Mesmeric chant being the one that, when it or another constant enters play, as long as this is in play, it will exhaust a random opposing troop, and it can't ready during its next controller's ready step. It can be very nice to just delay long enough to get your strategy going. Deathmask Assailant, which we've seen in several decks so far, just really nice effect. Duskweed Shepherd, a 1/3 flyer for 2, with the ability to get Threshold by sacrificing it. So very nice with the Radiance. The Crimson Bolt here for 2 damage on a target troop, or an extra 4 if it's a troop with flight. Very nice card there. Nice removal. 2 Fury chants here, so when a constant enters play under your control, deals 2 damage to each opposing champion. So if you were to play this out and play another one, the second one would do 4 damage, as the first one would trigger. So he's also got a shift troop here, so he's actually got 2 shift troops there, and he's also got the Deep Gaze Champion, which when a power is shifted onto a troop you control, each troop you control gets +1/+1. So he did end up with a decent amount of shifters there. Does he have any more though? Just the 1. So sadly only end up with 4 shift troops with the Deep Gaze Champion, but it's well, let's actually have a look here. So obviously Deep Gaze Champion would have came along in his last pack, so it's not really it's not like he could have predicted that coming. So being the set 3 card there. So just picking it up though. I mean, it's a 3/3 for 3, so even if he doesn't get to get that benefit, it's still good value. So the playing with fire, as I said, potentially removal if he gets the big cost stuff down. So whenever you play a card with a cost 5 or greater, it deals 2 damage to a target champion or troop. So in terms of how many potential cards he's got, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he's got 5 cards that could be played to get that trigger happening. So not a whole lot, but I guess that's probably enough. Really good trick he's got here. Well, I say trick, it's not really a trick, it is a basic action after all, so your opponent does see it coming. But it is, if you do have all your 5 thresholds, that is a +5/+5 for 3, so it can be very powerful. Pretty nice card there. So he's got a Storm Dancer. Now I assume he probably, I didn't actually gem this and I wasn't able to tell what he had in it, but if we look over here we can see he doesn't really have much Sapphire, so I doubt he would have went with Flight, even though Flight is probably what, it's generally what you want in this, as giving a troop evasion, while then it also gives another troop that effect. So in this case would give evasion, would be the ideal scenario. He may have went for like the Ruby of Flames, because he does have, well, I mean it's a pretty big mix, so it's I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe he just went for. It's very likely he went for a single threshold gem, like maybe a +1/+1 or something. But I'm not entirely sure. Could have even went for Swift Track though. There's plenty of options. So again, Etherealize, another one of his removals. So it reverts and transforms a target constant or troop into a phantom. So decent option if you're getting beat down by some giant threat, or there's a constant you must deal with. So he's got the Boomsmith, which is a 2/1 troop for 4, that also has the dealing of 2 damage to a target opposing troop on entering play, so not bad. And then he's got a Midnight Paladin, which again, you had Alucard and Mokog both fighting over all the colors, so I'm sure they would have liked it had they been, they definitely, like, they were fighting with each other basically, so it did hurt both their decks that there were 2 players trying to do this sort of stuff with multiple colors. Had there been only 1 player doing it, the deck that you'd be looking at right now would be much stronger. Instead, you've got 2 players with, you know, half of what they would have liked. So then we got the 2 verdant chance, which is creating wild shards on entering play. So if you do get this, and then you play another one, then you'll get multiple, and so on and so forth. Can get pretty crazy. And then yeah, so Gossamer Tears is when it enters play, you gain 6 health, and then every turn you gain 1 health, which is, I did consider taking it for my deck, but I guess I was hoping for it to wheel. I can't really remember, but yeah, it would have been okay in my deck. Obviously, with the gaining health every turn, is a nice effect when you've got many troops that work with that. But yeah, one thing, like, if you just look at, Alucard had some pretty crazy thresholds on his late game stuff. The one thing I would say about Mokog's deck here, another thing to point out, is he was another one of the players with the 41 card special. He did run 17 shards and 24 cards. The one thing I would point out is the Wailing Rider seems very out of place to me. As you can see, he's got 8% blood here. And like the Midnight Paladin makes perfect sense, obviously, in the deck. But the Wailing Rider seems a bit out of place, as it is a double blood. If it was single blood, fine. But at double blood, which he's unlikely, you know, doesn't have a whole lot of fixing. And he needs to get, you know, he needs to make sure he's got all the thresholds. I will say, though, it is his only card with a double threshold. But it is there, you know, like I said, it does seem a bit out of place. But maybe he just had to, well, you see, like I said, he ran the 17 resources, which, yeah, I mean, he could have just taken this out and ran 17 resources with 40 cards, I guess. Would have been fine. But for whatever reason, he wanted to keep that in. I mean, it is a pretty decent effect, but considering he doesn't have a huge amount of evasion, yeah, it does hurt it a little bit. So Mecha Filcape, pretty, you know, decent, and then a Larch, which is a good card, as it does provide fixing for getting a wild anyway. So that does help out in terms of the wild thresholds. So yeah, that is the other 5-color special there from Mokog. So as I said, you had Alucard and Mokog both fighting there for the for what they wanted. Had they been, like, let's quickly go back to Alucard. Let's just confirm that. Had there been just the one player, there's, you know, potentially, you know, like more fixing for one, but also, like, you know, 2 paladins, just maybe more necrotic, you know, just wouldn't need to run things like this. And yeah, lots of crazy thresholds though for both players there, as they were fighting for with each other. So let's see, we've looked at these guys now. So did we look at, no, we haven't looked at Motivation yet. He was also the other player that was competing with Sithos, not Sithos, sorry, he was competing with Snake. Yes, he was competing with Snake. They were both the Yodel players here. So let's go look at Motivation. So Yodel, being the champion that makes it so non-combat damage dealt by your cards is increased by 1 for the turn. So it does work very nice with things like these Ghostblade Duelists, making them able to exhaust for 2 damage. Can be pretty nice. If you got multiple of these out, you could just, you know, if you had all 3, you could activate that and do 6 damage right there, which can't be stopped unless they're killed. So that's pretty nice. But yeah, let's start with the first removal card he's got here, which is deal X damage to target troops. Scarn Breath is a very, very good removal card for Ruby. But yeah, don't pick up a Scarn, as he points out here. This guy made a big mistake. But yeah, so very good removal. We've seen Attachary Tormentor before, just a really good 1-cost in blood. Sing Red we've seen as well, but really good with Evasion or Swift Strike. So he's got another Death Mask. A lot of people picked up a Death Mask Assailant. So he was running, he didn't do a 41 card special. I think one of the other guys I looked at as well did. I think it was like 4 people who did 41 card special. Dinotropia was another one. But yeah, so Death Mask, Fire Indignation, being 2 damage to target troop if you control a 5-cost card, which he has not many. So it's generally going to be, in most of his matchups, probably was just 2 damage, but it's still 2 damage for 2 cost. He's got a double Blade Flourish over here, which is a nice cantrip effect card with giving a buff, which works really good on Swift Strikers or evasive troops if you want to just get damage to the face. So yeah, 2 Blade Flourishes there. Here's the first evasive troop, is the Rotting Knight with the Ruby of Flames gem here. give you an evasion. Ashwood Blademaster being the first Swift Tracker we're seeing, which also can buff up L's, which he has some of, but not a huge amount. Another evasive troop being an Eggblight Stalker, so the ability to make some spiders, so get more evasive troops that way potentially. But yeah, so that's not bad. Whirling Brutalizer is something he would have obviously loved to have more of. But yeah, very nice, and does combo with these duelists, as the duelists can ping. If the Brutalizer then attacks, it'll deal 2 damage to each opposing champion. And if a troop is dealt damage, he could then attack with this, and that troop will then also take an extra 2 damage. So it does combo very well with things like Cleave, which Cleave also combos very well with the Champion Power, as you can Champion Power do 2 damage, 2 damage, 2 damage, or 2 damage to the champion's face, and a troop and a troop. And then if you were to attack with this as well, because of the Champion Power, it'll then do 3 damage to the champion, 3 damage to this troop, and 3 damage to that troop. So a lot of ways to do a lot of good stuff there. And then also we've got the Kindle Archer, which I guess works with some of these things, especially the Ghostblade Duelists, as you don't have to do this on your turn. You can do one on your turn, do one on your opponent's turn, and then this troop will grow on both your turn and your opponent's turn, as it has the if an opposing champion was dealt damage, this gets +1/+1, and that works on both your turn and your opponent's turn. So very nice there. Got a Gladiator here, which is an Empower card. Basically, it's just, you know, good value, as it is a good draw in the early game and the late game. Definitely not the best Empower card, but still decent. The Bomb Right here is another good one that actually did a number on me in the first game I played, was against Motivation. And the Bomb Right with Whirling Brutalizer is pretty damn GG if you don't have removal, which obviously my deck did not. So yeah, Whirling Brutalizer with the Bomb Right, he can use this exhaust to ping either a champion or a troop, and then just attack with the Brutalizer, and that'll finish most things off, especially with the Champion Power. That will, you know, make that do 2 damage alone by itself. So nice combo there. Shadowblade Assassin, just a good 4-drop 3/3 with lethal that can be shifted. Ashwood Cinder Stump, which is a good plant here that benefits from when you play a high drop card, 5 or more, or if you play an action, it gets a buff here as well in Swift Tray. So pretty good. And then the Death Mask Ravager deals double damage but can be shifted, so good with these evasion troops, like especially this one, as it's a 3/2, so 6 damage if you give it double damage. Hidehorn Hunter, another troop that when you play an action gets a buff, and also socketed with evasion there, or well, can't be blocked by troops that share, unless they share a shot or an artifact technically. And then a 7-cost rare here, which is the 4/6 for 7 when a champion is dealt non-combat damage, which he has lots of ways to do that. Create a Scarlet Raider for each damage dealt, put them into play. So now the cool synergy with this is the fact that with the Champion Power, he's increasing the damage by 1. So let's just pretend he had 3 of these Ghostblade Duelists in play. He then gets to 7, you know, maybe he's flooding out, he's delayed, you know, did some removal. He gets to 7, plays this out. He could then activate the Charge Power, ping, 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 that's 6 damage, would then create 6 of these little dudes right there. So pretty damn cool. But yeah, it is a high cost, but a pretty good effect in a deck like this. And he's got the Cleave, the Whirling Brutalizer, the Bomb Ride, so several ways to combo with it there. So pretty cool deck, and that's a Yodel deck. So yeah, let's go have a look actually at the next Yodel deck, which was Snake. Actually, I think Snake's the last one. Have we looked at everything? I'm not sure now. Let me check. So Snake, Sithos, that was Modi. Yeah, so we're just last one is Snake, also known as Silent Snake 76 on Twitch. So yeah, he was competing with obviously cards with the Motivation there, but I know he first picked the Sting Shot Sniper, which is a bomb. Like, not many of us got bombs in terms of just really powerful cards that can take away the game by themselves, but this is definitely one I would consider as a bomb. Some of us got some cards that I would also consider somewhat bombs. You know, they're not like so crazy. Like, this is pretty crazy, this card, as the effect is very powerful, and the fact that it can be empowered as well makes it so it's a really good early threat that if it's not dealt with, it can just keep killing things for free. And in the late game as well, you can play it for 6, and then it's even a bigger problem potentially. So definitely a very good card here. Very nice effect there. So I know that was his first pickup. So again, he's using the same champion as Motivation was, and he's got one of the duelists. He's got Silver Rook that can combo with it, which is the deal damage and gain life. He's got a Fire Dancer which can be increased, Vampiric Kiss that can be increased, 3 Nightmares. Alright, let me slow down. So Scorch, first up, is 0 cost, deal 1 damage, so you can make this do 2 for nothing. Blood Infusion Device, bit of fixing, but also can be increased to do 4 damage and 4 health. So that's pretty nice. Rock Cast, destroy target opposing troop with cost 3 or less, so just good removal there. Lackey is a good early threat, as it's a 4/4 for 2. Technically, on the first swing, it's going to be a 3/3, and it gets smaller and smaller. Not a whole lot he can sacrifice here, sadly, to keep it around. But if he has to, and if it's deemed worthy, he could sacrifice some lackluster stuff if it's better to keep this around as a big as a 4/4. But yeah, it's not the best in this type of deck, but it's still alright. It's still a good defender, that's for sure. Just to buy time, and you can just keep pinging with certain things. And he does have the evasion, so he's got the Sting Shot Sniper as I mentioned, and then the Nightmares as well. So the Nightmares is a flyer that's a 2/1. So when it enters play, it deals 2 damage to each opposing champion, and any damage dealt this way, you gain health equal to the damage. So again, with the champion, it can do 3 damage on entering play, and he gains 3 health. So with 3 of those, that's really nice, as it's an evasive troop with a nice effect on entering play. So that's really nice evasion right there. He's got a Dire Spider, which is just a good 3 nice aggression there. Crazed Raider, another nice aggressive card. The Fire Dancer is good value, but sadly can easily be blocked out. But yeah, it's still good. I mean, obviously. Vampiric Kiss, very good, and with the charge power can be done for 3 damage and 3 life. So you actually end up with a pretty decent amount of life gain. We've got this here with life gain, the Kiss there, the Nightmare, so a lot of life gain there, while also a decent amount of evasion. The Concuss I actually skipped over, which is a discard, deal, in this case, up to 2 damage. But if he empowers it, well then he can do up to 4 damage for 4 cost, while discarding 2 cards, if using the charge power. Burning Tendrils is really good removal in the fact that it's 3 damage and to a troop and 2 damage to the opponent's face, and it can be empowered, so again with charge power can do 4 and 3, or late game it can do 7 and 5. So yeah, that's very nice. Merciless Color doesn't fit the greatest in this deck, but it is not the worst, as there are troops again that, like while they're early threats on the ground, like for example maybe Lackey's about to die, he could just sacrifice that off, as it's going to die anyway, or these can't get through anymore, maybe it's worthwhile then sacrificing. So the color's not the worst. It's when it enters play, each champion sacrifices a troop. Boomsmith, just another good with this charge power because it can be done 3 damage on entering play. He's then got the Cinder Stump, which is again can be buffed on playing actions, which he has a decent amount. And then the Blade Juggler is the only thing I don't like that much in the deck, but maybe he didn't have actually I think he did have another Dire Spider in his reserve, so in the backup over here. So I would probably have just for what I would have done. I'm not a fan of this card, but I mean it's still alright. It is a speed 4/1. Obviously the Alpha Legions in this deck, not a whole lot. We've got what, 3 elves there, so there's still some, but yeah, at a 4/1 for 4, very easily killed by lots of things or just blocked. But it's okay. But maybe he just didn't have something else to bring in. I know he had the Dire Spire though, so I probably would personally just run a Dire Spire over or something like that. But yeah, so Savus Evocation is a nice card, as it's a rare basic action that also will turn into one of these other cards at random at the start of your turn. So you might have it as this to deal 5 damage, which is nice. Can be up to 6 damage with a champion, and then you can turn into this, which is more resources, so a bit of ramp. Not something this deck really needs. But then you've got the Familiar, which is a very nice flight speed evasive troop for 2, so that would probably be the thing you're wanting in most cases. And then the last card is a Fury Seeker, so another another nice speed troop there with Rage 1 for 6. So Snake's deck is also pretty decent, but you can imagine how bonkers. There was actually someone else who'd had, what was the card? So yeah, we had Snake and Motivation competing with each other. Somebody took, like, you know, Whirling Brutalizer, somebody had one of these. I guess they denied it, because if either of those guys got, like, if there was 2 of that in this deck, it'd be pretty brutal, especially with all these, and yeah. But yeah, if there was only one player in the Blood Ruby, would have had a pretty crazy deck that they would have ended up with. But yeah, so we had 2 players, Snake and Motivation in those. Sithos was the only one in the Ruby Sapphire, but obviously taking a lot. You know, there's 3 Ruby players right there. Mokog and Alucard just taking all the things, and then you had myself, which pretty much being in Wild Diamond. While I did miss out on some, like I was getting all the wild. And you know, Mokog and Alucard maybe took some of the wild that I might have liked, but I know they took some of the diamond in terms of Totem Trap. I think Mokog ended up with that. But yeah, so yeah, and then Dinotropia I guess was also taking the diamond, being Sapphire Diamond there. So that was a look at all the decks there. So you know, lots of different win conditions in all these decks. You had you know, Dinotropia with these flying evasions, Hacky with the spider evasion, myself with the heal shenanigans, lots of synergy there with the heals, but sadly not enough removal. Then you've got Motivation and Snake, both with pretty aggressive, well I guess Motivation, Snake and Sithos with very aggressive decks that are trying to put on pressure, but also in the case of Motivation, he's got the ability to not have to need to attack to do damage. With also just the decent evasion troops. Snake also in a similar position with those 3 Nightmares and a Stingshot Sniper, so you know, evasion is obviously very important. So yeah, you've pretty much got, who else did I miss there? So yeah, so Alucard and Mokog were trying to live dreams. Like their win conditions were a bit, I guess Alucard's win condition was really those Midnight Spiritualists. This is probably his best shot. If the game does do it late, then the Poet could do some work. Mokog, actually, I guess I didn't actually think about what his win condition was. I guess it's his was Chance, really, as his best. You know, Chance with the constants was probably his best shot at trying to get a win there. But without the Fury Chance and the Verdant Chance, like if he wasn't to see any of those, it would make it pretty rough for this style of deck. So yeah, anyway, that was that was a look at all the decks there. It was meant to be a summary, and I ended up talking for way too long, but whatever. So you know, let me know in the comments what deck you like the most. You know, maybe you've given them a ranking or something of what decks you know, the top 3 or whatever. Let me know what deck you liked, or what decks you liked. So yeah, that was all of them. Let's go back over to the PowerPoint. So again, we had, you know, Alucard, Mokog both on Uzu, myself on the Raven Talon, Sithos and Motivation, which I guess I got this wrong. Wait, I left out a name? Or I did it wrong? I just did it wrong. 1, 2, 3, 6. Yeah, I left out a name and I actually did it wrong anyway. So I'm a floobs, but that obviously should be, let me check that again. So it was Snake and Motivation in the same color. So I stuffed that up, I apologize. And then it was, yeah, so I actually left out McBombus completely. Oh, poor McBombus. I flipped that up. So, I spent hours setting that up and I stuffed it. Well done, Havoc. Well done. So let's get McBombus in there, just because I feel bad for the guy. Oh well, poor guy. Anyway, that's not a big deal. So yeah, technically that should say Sithos should be under McBombus, which I forgot. I don't know how I stuffed that up. Oh well. So yeah, it should be Snake and Motivation and Sithos as McBombus. My bad. Oh well, my blunder. Let's go and have a look at the final results here. So we had Dinotropia winning the whole thing. It was Swiss, so he had 6 wins and 1 loss. I can't remember who the 1 loss was to. I ended up with 4 wins, 4 loss. So I lost in the last round to Dinotropia. I managed to do 2-1 against my first 2 opponents. And then Dana Trippier just racked me with his evasion. Yeah, just really good curves. Hacky got 5 wins and 2 losses. We got Sithos at 4 wins and 2 losses. And Motivation and Snake at 3 and 3. And they were the 2 guys who were the Blood Ruby players. Sithos with a really nice Bombus, Hacky with the spiders. And yeah, so then we had Alucard and Mokog, both of them who competed very hard for the 5 color dream, at 2 wins and 4 for Alu and 1 win and 6 loss for Mokog. So that was the end results there. Again, I'm sorry about that for the previous screen there. I don't know how I forgot McBombus. I love McBombus. It's probably actually my favorite to do anyway. It's a lot of fun to have a really good McBombus deck in Limited. So anyway, my bad. So again, you can check out all these guys, their Twitch channels there. But that is pretty much it. So that was a lot longer of a summary than I first intended. But that was a look at each of the players' decks, the final results there. And yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy the matches. Again, if you haven't checked those out, you can check out the whole playlist under the Streamer Showdown playlist on my YouTube channel. So you can check out each perspective from each player to watch the matches themselves. So you got to look at the decks there. And yeah, so yeah, let me know in the comments what deck you liked the most. So yeah, thanks for watching. That is all for now. Take care.